future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Heidi Lofthus.
This podcast is brought to you by Pragmatic Solutions, the leading iGaming PAM platform with a modular approach, including many benefits like a fast, secure, and scalable API-based platform, integrated with all major third-party products and services. Make sure you head over to Pragmatic Solutions and join our smart thinking.
Sacha Borg, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Heidi.
You are now, since 2 years, a recruitment manager at Tailwag.
Yep.
And we used to work together.
Yep.
Until you decided, mid-pandemic, summertime, to join the recruitment agency trade.
Yep. That's right.
Now, knowing what we know now, hardship in finding talent, what is it with you and recruitment?
I think it all boils down to the passion. So, helping people out, helping them find jobs. That was always something that attracted me to the business, getting that satisfaction from helping someone and finding their dream job. And apart from that, I think there's a difference between the two as well. So obviously working in a company as a recruiter and working in an agency, there are quite a number of differences. So obviously when you're an internal recruiter, your main aim is to find people to help the business grow, to create better structure internally, to find the pain points and recruit people to sort of sort them out or iron them out. When you're in an agency, it's a different role that you take on. So obviously you have a client base, you're helping them, again, the same, sort of filling in pain points that they have or filling in roles that they have to fill, but at the same time you're keeping an eye on you're keeping an ear to the ground. You're understanding what's going on in the market. You're seeing different trends. You're seeing changes within the market. Roles that are needed now weren't needed 2-3 years ago. So you're seeing all these different changes, which keep you on your toes, really and truly. We say that in the IT world, in the gaming world, there's constant change. But as a recruiter, there is also constant change because you constantly have to see where these industries are going, what positions they're going to need. So that, I think, those two facets of the role have dragged me back into working in an agency.
And I think that's also why you're here. I want to pick your brain on all these things, the macro trends, what's happening in recruitment, in relocations, local talent in Malta, hybrids, everything that you now know, having, all these companies sort of coming to you with requests.
Yep.
Tailwag, because then we might be able to compare a little bit in between the industries.
Yeah.
Gaming mostly, but you also do fintech.
Yes. So I work a lot with gaming clients, specifically gaming and IT, I would say. So that's more my area. Then I have my colleagues who work in different areas as well. So apart from assisting IT and iGaming or fintech companies, we also have companies within the finance sector, manufacturing, marketing, insurance. So it's quite a broad area of industries that we work in as a company.
Locally mostly, right?
Mostly locally, but we are branching out. So we're also helping some of our clients have offices in other places in Europe, which we are also assisting them in finding people for those locations.
Exactly. When we say locally, we mean Malta, right?
Yeah, exactly. When we say locally, for us, we mean Malta. But as I said, we're helping some companies, fill positions in different parts of the world, essentially. So UK, Turkey, Poland, Sweden, Finland, but also Canada now.
Let's go into that.
Yes.
But Sacha, I heard myself saying, and we in general probably say this a lot. I heard myself saying, introducing you, saying, the hardship in finding talent.
Yep.
Now, how true is that? Local talent, perhaps, but
I think it's always been true. Since I've started working in recruitment, we've always said that it was an employee-driven market, not an employer-driven market. So, as if we put ourselves in the shoes of employers, it's always been challenging to find talent. Obviously, the last 2 years we've seen changes in that, but it has always been, at least since I've been working in recruitment, it has always been an employee-driven market. So it's always been challenging. There are obviously certain roles that are more challenging than others, but in general, I would say, as an employer, you're always competing with other companies for talent, and it always boils down to speed and efficiency. So if, as an employer, you're taking things slow, you're going to miss out on some good talent. So yes, there's always challenges to recruitment, that's for sure.
But I'm thinking tech. Now it's probably the worst time ever, but tech has always been difficult to recruit in locally in Malta.
Yes.
I'm thinking now, since we have the world as our talent pool.
Yep.
Exactly. What has changed? Has it been difficult? Is it more difficult now recruiting tech worldwide, or is it just the sacrifices that you need to do as an employer? Not having people locally, more expenses, different time zones, to drop a few.
Yeah, so coming into something I mentioned before, where we had to, sort of experience, recruitment has experienced quite an advancement, or let's say, sped up certain issues or situations that before the pandemic, we were saying, oh, maybe it's going to take a couple of years before this, becomes the norm. But for example, remote working has now, during the last 2 years, was the norm. So the challenges in tech recruitment now fall on remote working. Where before you had tech candidates, tech people, the developers, product owners, business analysts, QA, whatever, you mentioned it, trying to sort of push the argument that they can work remotely, and companies saying, oh, but because of this, because of that, we can't do it, and what have you. Now it's been proven that it works. Plus the past 2 years, everyone was working remotely, or who could work remotely was working remotely. So now employers can't go back to candidates and say this will not work, because it has worked. So I think that is one of the major challenges that we're facing as a recruiter, assisting companies where we've had roles in IT that have been open for a year and a half, and we still haven't found candidates because the employer doesn't want to employ candidates or have employees on a remote basis, because they have
from the oyster.
They have their offices in Malta, they have their offices in London, wherever, and they want people to work out of the offices. That has been one of the major challenges in finding talent, because I think in 2022 we've seen the recruitment picking up again. So we've seen people who are reaching out, applying for jobs, seeing what's out there. So there is an element of movement. However, where we're getting stuck is bridging the gap between what the employee wants and what the employer wants. Just to delve a little bit more into this, last year, as Tailwag, we carried out a small study around 150 employees in Malta, people that were on our database that we've worked with in the past. And sort of we got some data in terms of remote working from home, just to get a feel of what the people want at the end of the day. And you could see that sort of after the pandemic, we had around 90% of individuals who want to remain, at least if not fully remote, have sort of a hybrid model. But this is, again, for the local market. When it comes to IT, we're talking about getting talent from abroad. Now, there are a number of different issues that come into play here. So we've got people who don't want to relocate to Malta. people who want to stay working remotely, or people who want to relocate to other locations if they want to relocate.
What did you say now? Not wanting to relocate to Malta?
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's been one of the biggest struggles that we faced. There are a number of reasons for this, which we can delve into. Just to sort of come back to my point and close sort of the idea there. So yes, sort of unless we find that bridge between what the employee wants and what the employer wants, it's always going to be a struggle to find talent, especially in tech.
Is that the big deal breaker?
Yeah.
Imagine the recruitment process.
Yeah.
And is that the sort of, when the question pops up, can you relocate to Malta? Is that where you see the biggest dropouts? Or?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So, and this happens before we actually delve into the recruitment process. So before we send applications, sometimes even before we meet candidates, when we're approaching candidates and like, listen, we have these opportunities, you might be interested in them. The first question that they ask is, are these roles remote or do I have to relocate? And in the current local market, I would say like 85% of the roles still require the individual to relocate to Malta.
So remote in a Maltese setup.
Yes.
Because many of them are still hybrid. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let me reword it. So yes, when I'm talking about remote right now, I'm talking about people who are currently abroad, so not living in Malta. And relocation means they work remotely from another location in the world, essentially. When it comes to Malta, that's a different story because a lot of people want hybrid way of working. So let's say 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, which I would say 90% of the companies are now offering it, because obviously then there's benefits to it as well. But yes, remote, what I'm referring to by remote right now is people in different locations around the world working remotely for a company that is located in Malta. And that's where we're seeing the big drop. Yes, so the talent in the pool, the talent pool in Malta is limited. Obviously, you have a number of individuals coming out of university and cost every year. The number of companies located or situated in Malta that are looking for people with the same skill set essentially is growing. So obviously the pool is quite saturated as it is. So what we have to do is look elsewhere, look at other countries, look at countries where maybe Java developers are prevalent, let's say, that's just to take one particular example, and try to entice people or attract people to come to the island or apply for the jobs. And that's where the struggle is. It's people don't want to work remotely, and I understand it because people have their own families, their own social environment, their own network of friends, and obviously if you have to relocate, you're basically uprooting everything and starting over from scratch. So obviously it's more comfortable for these individuals to work remotely, and that's where we're seeing the big drop at the moment.
You were saying like on local talent, people graduating from universities, MCAST. So Gaming Malta has, together with the MCAST, sort of launched this apprenticeship program. So basically, asking gaming companies to take on apprenticeships. They have this advanced diploma, level 4 in iGaming. Now you're Maltese, kid from the block. What's the rumors on the street in terms of joining the gaming industry amongst your friends?
I think the gaming industry still has a popularity to it. People are still attracted to it. People are still want to get into it, especially people who have never worked in the gaming industry as well. So anyone who's worked in the industry wants to stay in the industry, and anyone who hasn't worked in this industry wants to get into the industry. From a local perspective, that definitely is a selling point. The industry that they work in, the environment, the culture that the gaming companies put out there, that's certainly something that attracts a lot of people.
Would you say that this tool is sort of growing?
Sorry?
Is this local talent pool growing?
I wouldn't say that it's growing, because obviously then you have to see what kind of positions are being open, are currently open in the companies, and how the local market feeds into those roles. So obviously, if the companies are looking for certain languages, for example, you're not going to find people from the local market. But if you're looking for individuals who not necessarily need to have to speak a particular language, then yes, the local market can, support. But when it comes to, is it getting bigger? I don't think that's getting bigger. I think it's actually getting smaller, in the sense that there are the number of people who are coming out of these courses has remained relatively the same, or maybe increased slightly, but obviously the number of roles has increased. So there's more competition
I wonder
from a
how
company
long
perspective.
Exactly. I'm thinking, how long will it increase for? I mean, the difficulty in recruiting, the potential raises in taxes for employers, and the up and coming sort of new market. And you were saying it as well, like people want to. Candidates ask if there are other locations that they can go to.
Yeah. Yes.
Now,
So what?
yeah.
Sorry.
I'm thinking if there is like a new gaming hub on the rise.
I wouldn't say there particularly is a new gaming hub on the rise. Malta became a gaming hub way back in 2010, I would say, maybe a little bit before that, was because of the tax incentives that they put in place for companies. So the incentive was never directly targeted at, okay, let's get talent here. The incentive was, let's get companies here who then in turn will get talent here. And, the wheel continues to go around. Now, what's happening is we're seeing a shift. So people are no longer looking to sort of relocate because, okay, I can work remotely for a gaming company in Malta. I can work remotely from Turkey, for example, if I'm Turkish. Cost of living there is way cheaper than living in Malta. I'm going to get the same salary as if I'm living in Malta. So it doesn't make sense for me to relocate, because I'm going to have more money in my pocket, essentially, at the end of the month if I'm working remotely. So I don't think that people are attracted necessarily now to, okay, it's the gaming hub, let's go there. There's opportunity there, let's go there. I think they're more attracted to, okay, what can I get out of working for this company? And it's not just from a financial perspective, it's more on a more personal level now as well, more on values, more on well-being, more on mental health. It's the added value that the company can offer, or the experience that the company can offer to employees. So I won't necessarily say that there is a new gaming hub developing that's taking the talent there. I think it's all these little things that are essentially adding up and refraining talent from relocating to the island.
It's interesting that you say that. I read in a Bain report this year. They produced a massive report every year on sort of trends in people movements. And a local friend here in Sweden shared it with me, and it's like all aspects of it is super interesting. But the fact that, listen to this, Sacha, 58% of workers across 10 major economies feel the pandemic has forced them to rethink the balance between their work and their personal lives. That's almost 60%, Sacha.
Yeah. And we've seen this. We've seen this during the pandemic. There were, I think, money is always important and salary is always important. But I think people are looking for experiences. You need to keep in mind that we spend 8 hours at least at the office or at work now, working with these people. So obviously we've become part of the company. The company or the work that we do becomes part of our identity. Now, what values do I as Sacha hold? Does the company I'm working for represent those values? Does it hold the same values that I do? And I think we've seen an increase in this over these past couple of years. Apart from the pandemic, we've experienced a lot of different political and societal turmoil, so to speak, during the last couple of years. And we've seen people expecting companies to take a stand. This was never done before. Companies before usually used to, try to keep us away as much as possible from societal and political situations, where now employees are expecting their companies to take a stand. Because obviously this reflects the values that the employees hold close to their heart. Well-being, which was a big thing during COVID, as one can understand, and it has trickled on post COVID as well. People are, okay, what's the work-life balance policy? I want to spend more time with my kids. This is why I want hybrid working, because it allows me to have more of a work-life balance. So yes, we've seen, we've actually assisted people who have actually taken a pay cut to go into an environment where they feel that they have more of a work-life balance. They're going to spend more time with their kids, with their family, with their loved ones.
I'm one of those.
Yeah.
So, like when we lived in Malta, we had more of a let's build a foundation, so that we have when we get older and sort of sort things out. I think that's a very standard way of thinking.
Yes.
Whereas now I go like, but the kids are just young ones. Maybe this is the time to work less and add on as time proceeds, and they don't want to spend time with me. So then, it's going to automatically turn out well. But on that, thinking of sort of changes in benefits, some companies have introduced endless vacation days. I see this very adamant guy on LinkedIn saying 4 days a week only, Fridays off for everyone, reduced hours as you're talking about. Can you see any trends?
I think what we're eventually going to, so obviously right now we're seeing an increase in hybrid working. I think that's the big buzzword of 2022, hybrid working, flexibility. Yes, the 4-day a week, people are, shouting it out there. Everyone's testing it out. There are some countries, I think Spain, if I believe, have started testing it out as well, or Portugal. I still have mixed feelings about the 4-day a week, because obviously you need to make up for it, unless your clients, for example, I can't work 4-day a week, because if my clients work on a Friday and they need something on a Friday, I need to pitch in. But yes, I think right now what we're seeing is a big pickup in the hybrid way of working, which is 3 days, 2 days, or 2 days at the office, 3 days at work, and what have you at home.
That's kind of the minimum expected these days.
Exactly. What I believe. Yes. Yeah. No. It is an expectation out of employees, candidates. Although you do still find people who prefer to work fully from the office, and then obviously that's down to subjective experience and personal preference. But I think where we are moving on to, and this would obviously play into the people who want more work-life balance, people who want to work less and spend more time with their family. I think we're moving into an era in the next couple of years where I'm employing you, Heidi, not to work 40 hours a week. I'm employing you to get the job done. Now, if you can get the job done in 20 hours, that's fine by me. As long as we got the job done, we reached our targets, we got the sales, we reached our KPIs, and we're pushing the company forward. I think that's where
maybe even project-based.
Yeah. That I think we're moving more into that, because that would allow a certain element of flexibility where you can dedicate time for your work and also dedicate time to family. Speaking from a personal experience, for example, the way that I work, I'm relatively flexible. I decide my own hours, essentially. I have my targets, I have my KPIs, stick to them, reach them, surpass them where I can. But obviously then it allows me to shift the time. So if I need to, start a little bit later today because I want to spend some time with my fiance, and go for breakfast and then start a little bit later, that's perfectly fine. If I need to leave work in the morning, then I have got training, I go to train, and then I continue working in the evening. I can do that. So obviously it gives an element of flexibility there. And I think eventually that's where we're going to. I think that would allow people to be more in control of their time and how they spend their time. And it would in turn build trust. So obviously, it would build trust. So if I am saying, okay, Heidi, you're working for me, for example, listen, you don't need to work a 9 to 5, you need to work an 8 to 6 or whatever. This is what we need to do. This is where we want to go. Do that at your own time. If you want to start at 11 o'clock every day, that's fine by me, as long as we reach that. You in turn, you're going to feel that element of, okay, my employer is trusting me, they believe in the work that I do. I've got the confidence from them to do the work that I do. So you are going to deliver, because then there's that element of that you don't want to disappoint. So I think that's the trend that I think we'll see in the next couple of years.
Yeah. You pay for the results, not for the hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were saying, I want to sort of have a check, like a market temperature check with you. So you were saying Sweden, you were saying Turkey, you were saying Canada. Now Canada, US market, companies are going in there.
Yeah.
I sometimes see Canada as, they have much shorter vacation allowance, so it's not as advanced as maybe Europe. Whereas I think that Canada might be very advanced in terms of their sort of structure and setup and maybe KPIs and measurements. I was thinking about like the gig economy. Is there any place for that in gaming? Has it already started? Do you see anything from Tailwag's end?
It hasn't. I don't think gaming have gotten into the gig economy just yet. It's something that they might need to look into, because a lot of candidates in the US, Canadian market, they work on a gig economy. So a lot of people work on a consultancy basis, for example, on a project basis. So when we're trying to attract candidates for certain positions for those particular markets, what we're being faced with is candidates who tell us, but I have my own company. Can I sort of work this through my own company? Or listen, I've got a partner, we work on a consultancy basis. Can we work it on a consultancy basis? So I think they need to adapt. They would need to adapt. And we're seeing this mainly in strategic positions. So I'm not talking about setting up a customer service team or setting up an affiliate team. It's more about, having head of departments, people who would be basically giving their input on a strategic level. Because obviously there's talent, there's skill set, and there's knowledge there that is specific to that market. So unless the companies adapt the way they employ people, they're going to miss out on that. So I don't think it has picked up yet, but it is a need to be, implemented as fast as possible. And that's not to say that they won't find, candidates that want to work full time for a company. But I believe there's more, from an employee perspective, there's more opportunity for them right now to work with the gig economy or on a consultancy basis, rather than being, tied down to one particular company. So I think that's where that market is going.
Exactly. It's exciting.
It is.
It's entirely, it's a different continent, but it also comes with so much, learnings, and it might. I mean, it's safety is one of the highest ranking sort of. What's in it for you to what does your employer need to provide? Safety is really, really high, but this might be from last year. In a period of a pandemic, safety might be much more prioritized now. Sort of things are looking brighter. It might change.
And you're talking about sort of being employed full time, you mean, and not working as a consultant in terms of safety?
Exactly, like. Putting your eggs in many baskets.
Yeah, agreed. great. And it was, so I found a report that said that actually people who work with on a consultancy basis, with gigs, feel more safe in terms of job prospects, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. I think, and I would interpret that as being, listen, if things go belly up with this company, or it's not successful, not in terms of their role, but in terms of the company as a whole. You're used to switching from one job to another. I can easily find a job. I'm not tied to that company and what have you. So I think that's the way, at least, that I would interpret it. And another thing that I found was that in Italy, UK, and Spain, after COVID, like 90% of people would be open to working in a gig economy, which is interesting. Obviously, seeing that we're coming out of a pandemic, because obviously in the UK and in Ireland, for example, this was the norm before. There were certain positions, especially in tech, where people would usually work on projects on project basis. But now, sort of coming out of a pandemic, and people still want to do that. And I think this comes back to what we were saying before. It gives them an element of flexibility, of freedom,
While accelerating your CV.
Exactly.
You don't have to stay in a company for 3 years to make your CV look good. You can actually sort of gain, life value, experiences, and lots of knowledge in a quicker way.
Yeah, and you can switch from one industry to another as well. So you're diversifying, you're continuing to diversify your portfolio of industries that you can work in.
In 2 years, to sort of end up a little bit our discussion, unless I missed out on something, you tell me. But Sacha, where do you think we are in about 2 years?
I think, good question. But I personally believe that we would be going to, listen, I'm going to start paying my employees for the results rather than working a 9-to-5 job for the hours that they work. I think that's where we're going to shift to eventually. Obviously, we'll see an increase in remote work, flexibility, hybrid working in the next year or so. Because unless companies take that stance, they're going to miss out on talent, and it's going to have repercussions. I think within the next 2, 3, maybe 4 years, that's where we're going. Sort of, listen, I'm going to start paying employees for the results. This is where we need to go. I'm going to pay you to get me there. If you do it in 1 hour or if you do it in 8, that's up to you. Just get me there.
This is an entirely different discussion, and I'm not the one to have it. But I'm also thinking that, climate in terms of remote working will play a big role. 2025, Fit for 55. This will play a lot. I mean, everything will be much more expensive in terms of driving to work.
Yes, obviously the environmental aspect, a lot of different things we're seeing. People are talking about inflation right now. That's so obviously people will take these things into consideration when they're relocating. That's for sure. But also companies then putting certain schemes in place to attract talent as well. So we have the Netherlands, for example, that have certain tax benefits when it comes to expats that are attracting people. That's attracting people right now. So there are a lot of different things that come into play when people consider relocation.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Did we miss anything?
I think we covered everything. Yeah.
Sacha, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for the invitation, Heidi. It's always a pleasure having these conversations with you.
Agreed. 100%. Speak soon.
Definitely.